can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I feel like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Wise.
Dr. Jeremy Weiss here. We are here live at EO Eccentric in Dallas, and this is a live episode of Inspired Insider. I'm excited to talk to Joey, who has done all of the production stuff behind the scenes and not behind the scenes here at Eccentric. And we were talking last night, and you run Utopia Experience. And I'd love for people to know, tell what your company does and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are an event production company headquartered out of St. Louis, but we have clients as far west. Well, we go coast to coast, as far west as San Diego and as far east as Jersey. And we are here in Fort Worth producing, it's kind of, this is a full circle moment for me because we're producing the entire show, working with the event planning team, Coterie Spark. And we're doing all the audio visual, all the cameras, we had this conversation last night on the bus, and we just texted the team and said, hey, can we pull off a podcast interview together today? And they have the cameras and the audio and all the things to make it happen on site. So we're doing, it's sort of like, all the large audio video production here, but sort of, this stuff that's happening is, these small touches that allow all the entrepreneurs on site to, like in any corner of the venue, get additional content for their respective businesses, which is what we're doing today. It's really cool.
So you have a full booth set up, people can record, and also on the main stage with the big screens, and talk a little bit about the different services you offer for conferences or companies.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so it's all of our technology we use, like on the main stage, we have 3 large LED walls. So the center screen is about 35 feet, and then the 2 side screens are roughly like 22 feet. And for us, like the LED wall technology, it's where the future's headed. Like Jeff Woods was on yesterday talking about, AI, and we're thinking about like, how do we now integrate AI into our offerings and our core offerings of, bringing it into tech to make the experience more interactive. But just generally speaking, all the cameras, all the audio, all the visual elements that are, going on here at EO are handled by our team.
Some favorite conferences that you've covered? Ooh. I know obviously we have EO Eccentric. What are some other ones throughout the years that like this is a fantastic conference that people should check out?
I am a big, we talked on the, on the bus to the social event last night, on our way to the social event, we talked about Hal Elrod's event, which he no longer does. That was
Hal, bring it back.
Yeah, Hal, come on, man.
Yeah, love the book Miracle Morning.
Incredible.
Love it.
Yeah, really, my introduction to personal development was attending his Best Year Ever Blueprint event. My introduction to personal development was attending his Best Year Ever Blueprint event in San Diego. I attended 3 years in a row, and I just couldn't get enough of it. And he stopped doing it for personal reasons because he just got so busy in other areas.
It's a big undertaking.
It's a massive undertaking.
Yeah.
And EO Eccentric, my face leaked yesterday. I was just bawling, talking to some of the EO, some of the Central Region board members and organizers, because this is a full circle moment for me. My mom started this company 20 years ago, almost 21 years ago. And we started out as a bar and bat mitzvah company, which I know we briefly talked about last night, doing these, mitzvah celebrations for, for girls and boys who were then entering into adulthood. And the first one we ever did was my sister's. And this was in 2001.
Was that where the idea came from? Because it was your sister's, and then your mom just decided to produce the video?
She had a not so wonderful experience with another local company when she did my bar mitzvah and my brother's bar mitzvah just 2 and 3 years before my sister's. And so she said, well, if they're going to treat me this way, why would I just not do this on my own? Because it's something that I enjoy. It's a period or a season of life that I'm currently going through where all of my friends are bar and bat mitzvah, going through the bar and bat mitzvahs for their kids. And so there's certainly a stickiness because, I can offer this to all of my friends who are going through this season of life with me. And I think I can do it better and do it in a way that, we make the experience more like personal and fun and immersive and enjoyable whereas she felt as though she was treated like a transaction when she went through it. So she started Utopia, it was Utopia Entertainment back in 2001. And I say it's a full circle moment because my mom she's no longer with us. And the company has since evolved from a bar and bat mitzvah company to a full-scale audiovisual production company. And so 3 years ago, I didn't qualify for EO. And so as you know, to be an EO member, you have to be running a company that's $1 million or more in revenue. And so 3 years ago, we hit that. Then I became a member, and now we're here actually producing the conference for the organization that has helped me tremendously in my entrepreneurial journey. So I just got super emotional about that, thinking about how proud my mom would be of what's become of her company.
Yeah, and at the time, so was she setting out to start a business, or was she like, we're just going to do it better, we're going to do my sister's? At what point was she like, yeah, you know what, I'm going to keep doing this for other people?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because you're about 15, 16 at the time, like when she starts this production company.
Yeah. So she was like focusing on being an educator 50% of the time and working 50% in Utopia and 100% in neither. And at some point she just jumped off the cliff. You know, in finance, my background is wealth management. We always talk about cliff vesting, where, you know, there's either gradual vesting where your stock options are vested over, you know, a period of. And for her, at that point in time, my dad was the breadwinner of the family. For her, at that point in time, my dad was the breadwinner of the family. And my mom had long since, you know, was like raising the 3 children, getting us to a point where she felt like, you know, confident in our ability to go out and be mature, successful adults in the world. And when she got there, I think she was also working part-time as a teacher. And I feel as though she got to this sort of inflection point in her life where she's like, now what the hell do I do? I've raised my kids successfully and I'm working part-time as a teacher, but I feel as though I'm missing something. And for her, Utopia was the answer. This was like, it gave her this new like zest for life and this purpose and this pursuit of this new challenge that she ran with.
So your background's in finance, you're doing wealth management. Talk about then transition to taking over the company.
Yeah, I was like many, you know, 16, 17, I guess 18-year-old kids that go into college. I had no idea what the hell I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur of sorts because like I had this fascination with motors when I was a kid. And I was a 9-year-old kid going door to door cutting people's grass in my neighborhood. So that was my first business. And I loved the freedom of being outside, the flexibility of creating my own schedule. I loved the spring air and meeting all my neighbors. Like I knew everyone. I knew everyone on the street. And because I was this 9-year-old kid going door to door.
What was your sales pitch? You remember?
I think it was like cutting great since 98. Which is when I stood.
Will you just knock on the door and just pitch?
Yeah, hey, by the way, you know, I just cut your neighbor's grass. It was $20. I'm your neighbor. I live 3 doors down. It would be awesome if you'd support me, and I'll take care of your yard for you for the summer. And who's going to say no to this? You know.
And by the way, anyone who's listening, if they have kids, as I do, they can take and use that script for if they want to start their own business. Whether it's mowing lawns, it could be. Shoveling driveways if you live in somewhere cold. I told my kids a good business idea would be to go and pick up the poop in people's dog thing, because who wants to do that? So you can use that script that Joey just said for whatever. Yeah, so I love that.
And it teaches you that there's no task beneath you. Like there's no task that is like too. It gives you a level of humility. Like if I can pick up dog poop, then I'm not going to be the asshole CEO 30 years later in life who's like, yeah, the employees do everything, and I'm going to be in my, you know, glass office not doing it right, like just dictating orders. So I think it creates that level of humility where we're not just giving people handouts, we're giving them hand ups. And the hand up is like, go out and have the grit and the tenacity to try and make something of yourself. And you realize like, wow, those pants cost $100. As the speaker said yesterday, Lisa, the CEO of Bell, she's like, my kids were like, wow, Mom, those pants cost $100. And she's like, yeah. And
it's like 10 hours of work.
Yeah.
Right? I don't want to spend 10 hours of work to get these one pair of pants.
Go out and earn it.
Did you get rejection? Or
all
were
the time.
people like, oh no, we'll definitely have you do it? You do.
Yeah, I think more so related to the question you originally asked, which was like, you know, the finance thing. And so when I got to school, it was like many of the other, 18-year-olds, I didn't know what the hell I wanted to do. I just knew because I had this enjoyment for entrepreneurship as I did when I was cutting grass as a kid. I wanted to do something that gave me that same level of enjoyment. I thought finance I'd be able to have that connection to that entrepreneurial, spirit and grow my own thing. The rejection in finance was something that I dealt with 9 times out of 10. And it taught me that like I shouldn't have this feeling of, fearing failure. I should embrace it. And so at a very, early point in my career, I met a gentleman named Jeff Hoffman, who we talked about, you and I, and he taught me about the, stop. He's like, first of all, he taught me about like, stop trying to overcome objections, go find yes. And so I let those objections just roll off me because I knew the more no's I got, the closer I would get to a yes.
I love that. Yeah. And so eventually at what point do you transition to the video company?
This was 2014 when I made the transition, and similar parallel journey to my mom, I was working 50% in both, 100% in neither. I would work at my wealth management thing 9 to 5, and I would come home 5 to, to use the cliche, like 5 to 9, but it was way more than that.
1 a.m.
Yeah, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., just trying to grow the business.
Throughout, were you helping your mom at all? Like as she was doing different events or no?
I would help my dad with setup. My dad he would moonlight.
Kind of a family business.
Yeah, he'd moonlight as the weekend roadie. We'd have like the big trucks on our driveway, and my dad be lugging equipment up this like 30-degree like angle yard that we had, lugging it from the walkout basement up the hill into the truck. And I'm like, I can't let my dad do that by himself. So I would get involved and help them set up the events every once in a while.
Yeah. And we were talking about your mom last night. I'm sorry to hear that. But just talk about some of the lessons you learned from her.
Compassion.
Because you kind of just took over and, took over the legacy too.
Yeah.
In a sense.
Her rule was, we had something that my dad read as a part of her eulogy at her funeral, and they were Jody's rules, and they're just standards to live by. And I think the biggest thing that she taught me in my life was to be a mensch. And she was such a light. Sorry.
No.
I always feel as though it's a beautiful day when I'm able to get vulnerable in a day. I
100%.
cry. If I cry, I high five and get to hug somebody.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful day. But she really was such a light. And I mean, like, our home was always the place people would gather. I would always have my friends coming in and out of the house. We'd have sleepovers and slumber parties, and all my neighborhood friends would always know them. They were always welcome at my house. Didn't matter what ethnicity, what background, who they were, where they came from. My mom would always ask them questions like, "How are you?" and "Tell me about your day. What was the highlight of your day?" And she was just the type of like charismatic, caring soul that would sit down across the table from you and genuinely, with a curious heart, like ask you questions and care about your answers. She would listen and understand, not to respond. And that's something I learned about my mom is, can I bring that same lens of empathy and curiosity and compassion and sensitivity for my fellow human beings that she brought to me and all my friends at that very impressionable point in my life when I really needed it? And that's what she offered me. The greatest gift that she offered me was just to be a good human being and try to bring light where there's darkness.
What were some of Jody's rules? Do you remember?
That was one. Tough love. Tough love was another one.
What was a tough love moment?
Oh, man.
At the time, it probably doesn't seem like love, more like tough, but...
She was very much about discipline. And she had this tenacity about her where when she believed in something, and believe that it was the right way, that she wouldn't waver from that belief. And so there was a particular evening where I really wanted to have a sleepover. And my dad said, no, go ask your mom.
Or
And
you
so-
said no, and then you're like, I'll go ask mom.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so I went to,
The persistent entrepreneur. I'll find
that was it. Yeah. So I was almost pitting them against one another, and I shouldn't have done this. This was a terrible thing of me to do. And then I went to mom and I said, Dad said yes. Are you cool with it? And she's like, if Dad said yes, it's great. Well, 30 minutes later, I had invited my friend, and they had a conversation, and they found out that I was pitting. This was an awful thing of me to do. I can't, like, I'm in.
Out of the realm of things, not that awful, but yeah.
Yes. And so my mom sat me down, and she taught me a lesson about, telling white lies. And she taught me a lesson about being true to my word, and being truthful, being honest, and being open. And I learned an incredible lesson that evening. I slammed my door because I was furious that I wasn't able to have the sleepover. But what happened as a result of that was I realized the importance of not telling white lies and just being authentic. And that was one of her rules.
So compassion, tough love,
authenticity.
Authenticity.
And I'm blanking on the other two, but
I'm putting
sure
you on the spot here. So your mom was definitely inspiration. I love for you to talk maybe a lesson from, I know Hal Elrod, you were close with Hal. What was something you learned from him that you can remember?
So Hal has been just an incredible inspiration, in my life. His miracle morning practice was something that I adopted when I first took over Utopia. And I genuinely believe that doing that practice helped me create the operating system from which I was able to excel in business. And the operating system was his miracle morning savers. It's silence, affirmation, visualization, exercise, and scribing. So, journaling. And so oftentimes in entrepreneurship, we get into our heads and away from the thing that matters most, which is the heart. And his practices bring me back to that heart-centered energy in a way that's just profound. And I know that, like, when my mind is still, my soul speaks. I think that's a Robin Sharma quote. It might be
someone could fact check it.
It might be wrong. But when the mind is still, the soul speaks. And he taught me through these practices and through his coaching how to quiet my mind and get back to this centeredness, this wholeness of just heart-centered energy, which to me is a superpower.
I love to share. I know you have to go produce the rest of the show, but I don't want to make this too much longer, although I'm fascinated with the conversation. I do want to talk about some of your favorite resources, because we were talking last night. Obviously, it could be books, it could be podcasts, it could be just people. I know we talked about Miracle Morning. I know we were talking about Wim Hof method that you look at. What other resources or books, and you could talk about Wim Hof too, that other people should check out?
You told me Wim Hof is like one of the most fascinating interviews, right? Like,
it was a cool interview, yeah. I mean, I had studied some of the stuff before, but I don't think I've done any more research for an interview than I did when I had Wim Hof on, just because I love his stuff and his everything that he's teaches from a health perspective. So that was a good one. But I know we were talking about giftology, John Ruhlin. I don't know if there's a lesson from John, and you were close with John as well. He's one of the best human beings, may he rest in peace, of course.
Rest in peace, John.
That I talk about his book and tell everyone you got to get giftology. It's just a method for giving and loving on other people.
Yeah.
So.
Oh my gosh.
Any lesson?
So Wim Hof, I do Wim Hof every morning now when I wake up. I mean, it's particularly like in an environment like this where I'm doing my absolute best to try and compartmentalize the work of all of the different, components that are happening concurrently at the like I'm doing my absolute best to try and separate myself and enjoy the event as an attendee, but it's hard. And one of the ways, again, that I'm able to try to get out of my head and into my heart and really enjoy the experience as an attendee and not think about, oh my gosh, what if a screen flickers or a light goes out, whatever, is I start my morning with my miracle morning practice and I end it with Wim Hof breathing. And I love it. I highly recommend.
Yeah, if you want to Google Wim Hof, he's got a lot of videos out there. You can check out the interview I did with him, but he has a great TEDx or TED Talk, whatever it is, and it's pretty crazy, his methods.
And then I think you mentioned John Ruhlin and giftology, and it has been something that has changed the way that I try and create relationships with individuals like yourself. And there's a particular example that I'd love to just share if we have the space for it.
Do it.
So I read his book, and then I ended up at one of Hal Elrod's conferences. It was the Front Row Foundation conference, John Vroman's event. John Berghoff was facilitating. John Vroman's, Front Row Foundation was the organization that was benefiting from all the proceeds of the event to make all these wishes come true for these terminally ill kids that wanted to go and have their wish granted. And so speaking at that event was Jeff Hoffman, and they did something brilliant. They did a paddle raise, and of course, everybody wants to raise their paddle for this incredible, these little boys and girls that just want their wishes granted. So I wanted to raise my paddle, but I couldn't afford the $5,000 level because at the time, I was a startup entrepreneur just trying to figure it out, taking over my mom's business, and I'm like, now how the heck do I do this? Well, I'm going to go to Hal's event for advice because it's the personal development retreat and all the people I want to learn from. So Jeff was one of those individuals. He's the co-founder of Priceline, and he spoke. And at the $5,000 paddle raise level, they said, hey, if you bid at this level, you can spend 90 minutes of coaching time with Jeff. After the event, you fly out to him and he'll spend 90 minutes with you. I couldn't bid at that level, but I bid at a lower level, and I harnessed the power of what I read in giftology. And I knew that from Jeff's talk, that his Ferrari was very important to him. Because as a young kid, his mother told him when he saw this beautiful red Ferrari in downtown Chicago, he was an only child, single mother. She was working 3 jobs. She said, Jeff, unfortunately, it's just no fault of her own. She just didn't know this was possible for him. But he said, I want a car like that. What is that? And his mom said, you nor anyone that you know will have a car like that. So he got a poster of the Ferrari, wrote down 16 life principles, and when he accomplished the final one, he was going to buy himself the Ferrari. He bought himself the Ferrari. Now, again, just bringing you back to the event, I couldn't bid at the $5,000 level, but I was committed to doing whatever it took to spend time with Jeff and build a relationship with him. So I knew a friend that lived an hour away from Jeff's home where the Ferrari was parked. I called Jeff's executive assistant, through research, found out who it was, and I had his Ferrari professionally detailed. Buffed, waxed, ceramic coated, tinted, the whole thing. And he called me 24 hours after it happened and said, who the hell are you? And did you have my Ferrari detailed? And I said, yes, I did. And he goes, you got 90 minutes on my he was and had a great and I flew out to wherever he was and had a great conversation with him, and he's been coaching me in business ever since.
Amazing. So
and that was because I read John Ruhlin's book, Giftology.
Thanks for listening. We'll see everyone next time. Joey,
thank you so much.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sailing right now. I'm feeling like $100 grand.